Welcome to Roundtable Mindset, the podcast where we seek to understand and share different perspectives in order to grow and challenge our own. And we encourage you, our guest, to do the same.
Each week, we will pick a topic to discuss sharing our own unique thoughts and insights. There will be times when we won't agree, and let's be real, that's probably going to be most of the time, and that's okay. We feel it's important to understand that we can live in this polarized world and still respect one another and even be friends.
Well, hello, and welcome back to Roundtable Mindset. This is Jamie.
And I'm Mahlon.
And we're here for another episode of Roundtable Mindset, where we are going to share all kinds of thoughts and feelings and opinions and perspective and experiences.
I was going to say, I'm going to wait and see how many more words she can pack in there.
You were totally playing with that. I can't stand the silence thing, and that's not fair, my friend.
It is
that's
not fair. But every so often I was like, oh, I just want to do this just because. It's hard, though. I mean, when you're in the moment and you're kind of doing the talking, it's kind of rough. So, yeah, I didn't mean to. Well, actually, I did mean to, but just momentarily. You did a good job.
Thanks. I'll take that. So, how's your week been?
Oh, it's always a blur. I mean, where I'm at, we have a huge state fair that just kicked off, so that's consuming a lot of time, and it's so much fun to go, and it draws a lot of people, and so there's a lot more activity around where I live. We also have kids that are, my son's now in the throes of back to football practice. My daughter, who is getting ready to not only go back to school online, but also she's working full time now. So she's starting to balance, a real adult schedule with the last little bit of her high school experience. And then my youngest, who is just a whirlwind, is finally out of elementary. And so he's getting all sorts of ready to, not quite into junior high, but it's that stepping stone in between. So we just have a lot going on. So it's just been crazy as usual, and summer seems to be flying by, and I can't hold on to enough of it. So that's what's been going on with me. What about you?
Oh, it's always. Do you ever remember back when it was like, oh, I can't wait for school to start, it'll slow down, or I can't wait for summer, it'll be easy, and that just never happens. Even after the kids are gone, I'm still like, oh, maybe routine will kick in for fall, and it's just not. It's not the way it works. It never slows down. I feel like it just continues to speed up. So I'm just, yeah.
My parents always told me, the older you get, the faster time goes, and I didn't realize how true that was until now. I'm many years older than when they told me that. And it is absolutely true. The years just fly by. Mm-hmm. I swear just yesterday it was April, and now we're closing in on the middle of August. So that's
I saw a thing on Facebook the other day, and it said this year has been like April, May, or January. What was it? January, February, March, April, May, June, July, August.
Well, and that's our nicest weather, right? So we get to go outside, we get to go for walks, we get to leave the inside of our house because our environment's not trying to kill us. And so it goes by so fast.
I don't know. I was in your town and the environment was trying to kill me. Like the heat thing and the humidity just didn't work for me. And we've had record high temperatures this year. I do think the environment's still trying to kill us, even if it's not with snow.
I know, but I enjoy the heat so much more than the snow. That to me is death by pleasure rather than trying to freeze to death. The older I get, the more I hate the cold. Just hate it. However, one of my favorite seasons is coming up, which is I call it's fall, but I call it the spooky season. So we're getting ready to ramp up for Halloween. Although I don't go and get a lot of pumpkin lattes or anything, but pumpkin comes back out, the air gets a little bit crisper, the fall colors come out, and then we get into the Halloween season, and that is one of my favorite times of year. So I am really looking forward, in the next 3 or 4 weeks, starting to really ramp up. That's going to be fun.
Me too. It's the sweater weather. Sweater weather. Sweater weather? Anyway. It's my favorite time of year when I get to wear sweatshirts all the time because it's just got that little crisp. It's perfect. I didn't realize we both really loved fall. Fall is my favorite for sure. So
yeah, I think summer is my favorite, but and I think there's all the activities within fall that really helps me kind of go over the edge on that. And then we start getting into winter, which is my least favorite, but there's some fun activities going on. So it makes up for it, I guess.
That's true. That's true. So food for thought actually kind of relates to this a little bit. So we've been moving at my work. So we're moving offices. And
which moving, by the way, is the most horrible thing ever that you can do, ever.
That is trying to destroy me as well. Anyway, summer heat and moving will be the end of me. But no, it's interesting because I've been at my job for a very long time now, and I don't know that I realized how long I have been there until I started moving and started packing up some of my things and finding things that were wrapped with memories of people who worked there. And so it's been a reflective time for me, which really surprised me because I think I was just like, gotta do it. Like you just put your nose down, you get it done. And it's been interesting to stop and think about all of the people that have worked there with me and kind of missing that dynamic that we used to have. And yet being appreciative of the people that are there now. You know what I mean? Like, it's kind of an interesting, I recognize it, I think, just because, like, with my kids graduating and moving out, both of them are going to be out of the house here by the end of the month. And that is such a bittersweet thing. And it was interesting to me to have that in my work life, too, because so often, in the past, a job is a job, you know what I mean? And so it's been a good time for me to just stop and really think about like the people that I work with and how appreciative I am of the growth and experience that I've had there and how much that is related to the people that I've served with. So I kind of wanted to toss that out and see if you, in your more corporate corner of the world, have experiences like that too. Do you have some fond memories of work stuff and people that you worked with?
Oh yeah. I mean, I've worked over the course of 20 plus years. I've worked with a lot of great people. I've worked with many, different companies that were really great to work with. And there's a lot of memories that are associated with it. Some of my biggest growths as a person and professionally happened with individuals that I don't get to see every day anymore because I no longer work for the company or they no longer work for the company. And so one of the things that, kind of surprised me is how much you can have some of those memories, those fond memories wrapped up in your work life. My most, I would say, relatable topic to what you're talking about is I worked for a company for about 7 years and I left and didn't realize how much stuff, just like at home, things just accumulate. And I had to go clean out my desk. I had to clean out my locker. I had to clean out all this stuff. And you start going back, it's almost like a time capsule that you opened up your drawers and you start going through the stuff and all of a sudden all these memories and, some of it's going to be kind of boring, but I thought it was kind of fun too. But, you see all these training things that you did and you have little awards that you and your team got together and you just remember those fond times. There was one that we all went out to a team building exercise and they gave you, with your lunch, they gave you all these toys to play with. And so I came across these toys and instantly I started to remember the people, where we were at, what we were learning, like all these memories just started kind of flooding back. And it is great and it's comforting and it takes you through that, that memory lane. And without that stuff kind of triggering it, because it was out of sight, out of mind for me. And, there's probably been years I hadn't even really even thought about it until you have to get in there and have to say, okay, what am I going to do with all this stuff? And suddenly, the best way I can describe it is it's like a time capsule, and you just start going through the material and you're like, wow, these were really great times. And suddenly, I don't know about you, but even the trials and tribulations seem to kind of go off to the side, because all you really want to go through is remember the good times and where everybody was having fun. But there's also some sticky stuff in there too. But I can relate with that kind of stuff, and having to go through your personal items and kind of decide what has to be let go and what you need to hold on to.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and I think the cool thing about being at the same place for as long as I have been is that, there is only one person there still from when I started, and that's my boss. Everyone else has changed. And it's interesting because I can look back and I remember when that first round of people that I had started with started leaving, and how sad I was about that, and how much, I was like, oh, this place will never be the same. It'll never be the same. And that is absolutely true. It never will be the same. But what I'm grateful for in the longevity that I've had there is that although it's not the same, it's still really great. You know what I mean? And so it kind of helps me know, like, these people come and go, and they may not be in my everyday like they had been before, but those are people that I get to take along with me, and that I have a whole new set of people that I get to have that with. And so I'm just going to put this out there. Any of you that I have worked with that are listening to this, I have appreciated that so much. I've had such a great week of really reflecting and thinking about all of and not just the fun that we've had, but also like all of the people that have, all that they've done to pour into me and to make me part, being a part of who I am today. So, just a cool week of reflecting, I think, in the midst of total chaos. Like, let's be real, absolute chaos, but good time to stop and take a break and reflect.
Well, it's kind of funny when you said that when people move on, I have this fear. And I was just talking to my wife about this last week. I don't know what it was called. If I would have known about this food for thought topic, I would have maybe researched it a little bit, or maybe not. I don't know. I wouldn't know if maybe this would be associated, but you mentioned something that kind of triggered that for me. And when you said that when you got there and all the people that were there when you got hired started leaving, they started moving on. I have this, I don't know if I want to say it's a fear, but I have this, feeling that I get that other people are moving on and I'm being left behind. The closest that I can associate it to is, have you ever heard of FOMO, the fear of missing out? It's almost like that, but it's a fear of I'm being left behind as other people move on with their life. And it gives me a little bit of a sense of, I need to move on too. Like, everyone else is leaving me in the dust, and I need to catch up. And that's not reality, and that's not true. But in that moment, that's kind of what I'm feeling and struggling with. So when you said that, I instantly went back to that place and been like, I think that would have triggered that for me if I would have started seeing everybody leave that I first came on board with. I would have that feeling of, I'm being left behind and they're moving on to other things. What am I missing out on? So maybe it's a touch of FOMO.
The last 3 jobs I had, I was at them for a minimum of 7 years. I'm like a lifer, apparently. Like, I get in a place and I just like it and I just make it home. So this is what I do. But
well, in the industry that I'm in, I think the average turnaround time going from company to company, the last time I looked at it, I want to say it's every 3 to 5 years, is typically the how often you change to go to another location and to another role, another company. So I think it's interesting that the two different, fields that we're in, how that kind of maybe shapes how long we stay with the company. So
yeah,
interesting.
Well, and along that vein of being reflective, and maybe this is part of what made me so reflective this week is our topic today. This is going to be a reflection episode, so buckle in, because this could be a lot of fun.
We're intending it to be fun. I think it's going to be fun from the lens of, for you and I, Jamie, because this is real. Like, this is us. We've experienced this firsthand. what I think the listeners will get a real kick out of is taking some of these things that we're reflecting on and do it within your own life. Because I have a funny feeling everybody would want to go back and, have this episode with somebody like you, or even with themselves. But it should be a lot of fun. At least that's the intention.
Yes. Okay, tell us more about our topic, and let's kick it off, my friend.
Well, I'm not going to say that I am extremely excited about it, because I'm not. I am full of hope and anticipation, but no excitement.
Mahlon found a thesaurus this week.
I'm trying a few words out. So again, when, we've been talking and saying, what kind of things do we want to bring up? If you go back into our catalog of recorded episodes, we've touched on some pretty electrifying, topics, to say the least. We've landed on some pretty interesting ones that I think. And so, to your point on the whole, let's be reflective and let's look back. One of the things that you and I have talked about frequently is, what would we tell our younger selves? So knowing what we know today and all the trials and tribulations, all the words of wisdom that maybe we've heard from our parents or from other people and peers that we chose to ignore, and we went and did our own decision, and that came back and either bit us in the butt or didn't give us the outcome we wanted. If we could go, get into our DeLorean and go back in time and tell our younger selves, hey, let me give you some advice. And we've lived it now. Your decisions that you're going to have, we're on the other end of it with the consequences and the outcomes. Let us share with you the wisdom that we've gotten through the life that you helped us live. And, I did a little bit of thinking beforehand, and I don't know about you, but for me, my life is just littered with choices I wish I could have known a little bit more before making, or looking back and thinking to myself, why did I make that choice? What was so important at the time that I thought that was the best option for me? And could I have changed it at the time? So this episode is all about, theoretically writing a letter, right? Dear younger self, here's what I would share with you from the future based on the decisions that you made all through your life. And here are the outcomes. And here, let us help you make better decisions. Again, if we had a time machine to come back and tell you the outcomes.
Yes. Yes. So kicking it off with number one, I feel like if I could go back and talk to my younger self, like in high school age, it would be, Jamie, why are you so serious?
Preach. Just preach.
Like everything was so important. Everything was so vital and immediate and had to happen now. And
live or die, right? Like everything.
Yes.
For me, everything was live or die. It was absolutes. In that time of my life, middle school and high school, why so serious hits me so hard, because I lived in a world of absolutes and there was no variations. And living in a world of absolutes gives you very little wiggle room in life, and gives relationships.
That's so true.
Yeah, and it gives you very little wiggle room with other people and relationships and forgiveness and acceptance and apologies. I mean, there's just razor thin margin. Oh, reflection and learning. Tell me. Yes.
Yeah. Well, and it's like those things that were so important in the moment, causing so much stress that literally I was bathing my brain in stress hormones, and like everything was now do or die, right? Just to find out 2 or 3 days later that I didn't even think about it again. You know what I mean? Like,
oh yeah. Or it's such a big deal. You sleep on it, the next day you wake up and you're like, now, why was that so urgent? That's happened to me a couple times. I've stayed up and I've worked on trying to get some, last minute projects done, or trying to, figure out what I'm going to say to the person tomorrow because maybe a fight broke up, and everything was so immediate. I had to fix it now. Come to find out, a couple times in my life, I didn't fix it now for whatever reason. The next morning you wake up and you're like, okay, so why was that so urgent? Or it resolved itself. Because one thing that I've had to learn that I, need to be less so serious is that it's not always for me to fix. And sometimes, just sometimes, it's out of my control because I am a natural fixer. If there's a problem, I want to fix it. I want to come up with a solution, and we're going to go ahead and go. And sometimes problems come up that aren't for me to solve, but maybe for me just to listen and give sympathy. I wish I would have known that, because I took everybody's problems, my close friends, my families, and I made them my problems to solve when they really weren't supposed to. And so I would go back and say, you need to relax. You don't need to have, the answer for everything. And you don't have to look at every situation so seriously. Maybe just let some things work themselves out.
Well, and I don't know about you, in the same vein, I was also super focused on my future. Like everything was thinking, what comes next, what comes next, what comes next. So much so that I was so serious about what was coming that I didn't enjoy what was happening. You know what I mean? It was like all of these experiences flew by and I barely noticed them because everything was about, oh, when I graduate, I'm going to go to college. When I graduate college, I'm going to, you know what I mean? Like all of these steps that I had laid out for myself, I couldn't enjoy what I was experiencing in high school because I was so forward focused, like a mini adult, which kind of is what it is, but you know what I mean?
Well, and again, I think my parents did a fantastic job. This is not a knock on them by any means, but they own a restaurant. And so I grew up, by the time I was 14, I was working. I was working full time in the summer, and I was working, off and on doing stuff around the building, all the way up until I was 15 and then eventually 16, where I could work full-time hours and work in the restaurant, blah, blah, blah. And I remember my dad telling me one time, saying, Mahlon, work while you're young because it's easier. And that way, when you're older, you don't have to work and you can actually play. And so I took that to heart, and I gave up a lot of my decisions growing up was focused on, I need to make money. I want to save. I'm going to plan. This is going to go into the college fund. This is going to go into my retirement. I'm trying to save as much as I can because I'm working now while I'm young. So then when I'm older, I don't have to work as much. And, that principle has served me well. And as retirement's 20 years away, it's starting to shape up to look like it's going to be okay for me and for my wife. But at the same time, how many of these opportunities that I let slip through my fingers? I mean, I went through college working full time and doing all the things I was supposed to do, never really went on a trip, never really enjoyed myself, never really took time off just for me to kind of relax and have that college experience. Because again, I was focusing on what I had to do next, my next step. And I did that even in high school. And I really wish I'd go back and say, you don't have to have your whole life planned out. And yes, work while you're young, but that doesn't mean you can't stop and smell the flowers and relax once in a while, and maybe treat yourself, or heaven forbid, act like a 19-year-old and make a decision that is just reckless from time to time. Because that was me. I didn't want to make any of those because, again, I had a goal that I was trying to achieve. But I missed out on some of life's richest opportunities because I'm so focused and trying to get to the end game that I'm forgetting to look around and enjoy the journey. I just keep focusing on that destination.
Yeah. Well, and what's interesting is that as you're talking about that, I'm even reflecting on parenting my teenagers. And those last 2 years of college, I still was like, it was still the same attitude, and I parented them out of that attitude too. Like, you have to be mindful of your future. You have to pay attention to what decisions you're making now, because that can affect your future, and, really pushing them forward focused, and didn't even realize I was doing it as I'm sitting here saying I would tell my younger self something different. So.
Yeah, one of the things I tried to learn, my daughter, because she's doing the last year of high school, she's doing it completely online, so she has a lot more time, and she wants to get a second job. And I appreciate her hard work, and I think that's a very admirable skill and desire, personality trait. But I also said, you need to enjoy being a senior in high school, because this time never comes back. You'll never get this time back. You'll have more responsibilities as you get older. You'll have more challenges of life. You will have less time to do the things you want to do as you get older. When you have the moment to maybe reflect on yourself or be selfish, now is the time to do it. So as much as I'm not trying to teach her to be lazy, because I'm very proud of her for wanting to work, and she's been working since she was 16, I'm really making her stop and think to say, are you really wanting to give up all that free time just so you can have another job that in the end, yes, you'll have some more money in your pocket, but you will have stressed yourself out. You're still trying to get to college. You have ACTs and SATs and all that to perform. You want to go on college visits. You want to have time with your boyfriend. You want to have time for you and the family. Maybe a second job's not the right move right now. And I don't know, maybe she'll listen to us and maybe she won't. But I took that as a page from, I wish I would have learned that myself because of everything I just mentioned. And I'm trying to avoid her some of that pain. Now, as you know, as parents, if our kids listen to us, that's one thing. So we'll see.
Right. That kind of actually transitions us well to number 2. What would you tell your younger self about money or finances?
Yeah, so this one's a tough one because I think it does go hand in hand with being so serious. But I was pretty disciplined with my money right when I started. And I think some of that was just my personality traits. Some of it was my parents and, them giving me advice to saying, hey, prepare for the future. You should have a rainy day. However, the real big change for me with money came later in life. I took a class that focused on reducing debt. But I would probably tell my younger self, don't spend beyond your means. When I got to college, of course, the world opened up, right? Everything was at my fingertips. I remember going to college and everybody wanted to give me free stuff if I just filled out an application for a credit card. And there was a couple that I did.
That was some good swag, though.
It was some good swag. I'm not going to lie. Some of the people I was like, yes, I don't even care if I get the card. Give me that. That's awesome. But yeah, I probably would go tell myself, don't live beyond your means. It's harder to do it. It's harder to live, within the means. That means you're going to have to give up some of your wants and desires, especially when you just leave your parents' house and you're just getting started. But I tell you what, it took many years for me to kind of dig out of that shadow of that credit card and, no longer live being in debt with individuals. And so that would be a main one that I would go back and say and tell my younger self. What about you?
I think that I would probably tell myself to not eat so much fast food.
Well, now you're just being crazy.
Well, because seriously, how much of my money in high school and college did I spend on eating out all the time? All the time. I could have. Yes. Okay. So the second piece of that, the second piece of that, and this isn't a joke, except it kind of is. I would probably tell my younger self to apply or to buy stock in Apple. Because I think if you literally.
So wait a minute. Let me get this straight.
Buy stock. Stop eating Amigos all the time and go and buy some stock in Apple.
So we get a chance to go back and really talk to our younger selves and really try to straighten out the road there for us. And you were going to take an opportunity to make your future self wealthy? I think that speaks volumes.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
Well, here's the thing. I didn't think about that, but I would probably do the exact same thing. I would probably write down all the main, Mega Million jackpot and be like, here's the numbers. Buy them on these dates.
Okay. I wasn't that insidious. I'm just saying. I'm not cheating by saying buy stock in Apple.
That's called insider trading, Jamie.
Okay, not if I'm coming out of a DeLorean. I mean, let's be realistic here. Oh my goodness. No. But for real, I feel like if I would have, this almost feels opposite of what we just said, but I feel like if I could have been a little more forward focused in financial ways, then it's almost like I poured a ton of energy into worrying about things that I couldn't control rather than focusing on something that I tangibly could do something about, like deal with my money appropriately. You know what I mean? Like, so I would tell myself, hey, just stow some away. Like, pay attention to that and think about how helpful that might be when you get to college. And I would also tell myself to be more responsible with credit, because I don't know how many store credit cards I got, but the interest rate alone killed me. Like, oh my gosh, it took me forever to get out of that mess. But I didn't understand the difference between a real credit card and a store card.
Yeah. Well, and at the time, at being, 19, early 20s, did you care? I mean, you got to go into a store and get whatever you needed. I mean, at that point, you're like, I don't even care.
And thus the love affair with Target began. Thank you very much.
Their love story began many moons ago.
Well, that, and I went to school where Target was invented. But I mean, literally, the nice, hefty credit line that I had at Target definitely helped. So,
well, in the vein of money, I would probably tell myself, there was a new car that I got in high school. I was it was the junior year of my high school experience, and it was a really good deal. So it wasn't that I spent way too much money. It was a really good deal, but I did spend the money, only to have it about 2 months later get wrecked and almost totaled by somebody else. I'd go back and say, save that money. You don't need to spend it. Because here's the outcomes: that the car is going to get hit and it's going to be a bunch of fixing. And there was a whole bunch of nightmare that came out of it. So
just so I can think about where I was when that happened, and how I should have told you that as your friend. Which car are we talking about? Because I'm like,
the Probe, confused. The blue Probe that I got. So it was after
you had that for a long time.
Yeah, but I had the Thunderbird first, and then I got the Probe, and then about 2-3 months after getting the Probe is when the accident happened.
Oh, you got it fixed, because you did have that for a while.
Well, yeah, I got it fixed because, but it took months, and without getting into it, but there was a ton of money that we had to pay, and there was insurance involved, and it was just a nightmare. And again, I don't know if the accident would not have happened, obviously, if I didn't have my older car, but I can tell you I wouldn't have cared as much, and we probably wouldn't have fought as much, and it wouldn't have been as pricey. So I know those things to be true.
Yeah. Yeah, that's something I would do too. I would probably tell myself to make better decisions in cars, because I feel like I have blown a lot of money in my early life on vehicles. Bad vehicle decisions.
Now people ask me, "Oh, what kind of car do you have?" I'm like, "It's paid off. That's the type of car I have. No car payment." Oh, have you heard of that brand?
I am so excited. I am just a few months away from paying off my car, and I cannot wait. Somebody was like, "So are you going to get a new one?" And I'm like, "No, this is not a cell phone. I will keep this one. I always want to upgrade the new cell phone. I am not doing that with my car. Exactly. I still love my car. She is sticking with me until the wheels fall off."
We said that, and literally our Suburban tires, as we were pulling into our garage one day, the axle broke and the tire left the car.
Nuh-uh.
Yeah.
You drove it till the wheels fell off.
Yep. That's exactly what we said we were going to do, and we did it.
Way to go. I can't wait. I'll join the club.
Okay. So the next one on the list is number 3, attitudes about others. Do you want to start on that one?
Oh my. Attitudes about others. I look back in high school, and sometimes I'm shocked at myself, at the assumptions that I made about the belief systems that I had about other people. You know what I mean? And I thought I just thought I knew everything. So there was no adjusting my thought processes about people. So I would definitely go back and I don't know what I could have said to myself though. Like, I don't know what I could have told myself to make it different, because I could have said, hey, walk a mile in someone's shoes. But this is what it is. I was so self-focused on myself that none of you understand me, that it was like I couldn't even see beyond that to realize that I wasn't trying to understand anybody else either. So why did I think that they should understand me when I was making no effort to understand them? So maybe that would be more, maybe that would be more what I would tell myself. Stop being so damn selfish. Like, it is not all about you, Jamie.
Yeah, there's a lot I would say to my younger self about this one. This was a big Achilles heel for me, especially when I was leaving middle school, going into high school. A lot of things happened to me during that time. My circle of friends, with you being one of them, moved away. I found that there was people that were, just cruel. To say being bullied, I think that's a thing for kids. I was probably bullied up until a certain point when I was not going to stand for that anymore. And so it was a big transition period for me. And so coming through the other end of it, I would love to go back and tell my younger self, don't let other people's actions change who you are as a person. And I became a cold and calloused person. And I would go back and tell myself to say, if you do that, you allow them to win. I'd also tell my younger self, don't let people's mistakes define who you see them as, because we all make mistakes, myself included. And there's a lot of times that I judged people by what they did. And again, I saw anything that they did wrong, suddenly they were labeled. I knew everything about them. I knew what their motives were. I knew what they were thinking. I knew what their heart was. I knew a lot because I was 17, 18 years old. Of course, I would know everything there is to know about anybody because I'm the smartest person in the world. Just ask me. So I would go back and tell myself and remind my younger self that perfection is something that I can attain, and I shouldn't expect it out of other people, and not to be so disappointed when things don't turn out the way that in my mind I envisioned them, especially with relationships with individual, because I was setting people up to never disappoint me. And when they did, I just moved on. I just was like, nope, this isn't the relationship for me. I'm severing it. I'm moving on. And that is a huge problem. A lot of great people were cut out of my life because of my small-mindedness, not because of what they did, because we all make mistakes. We all make decisions. And that's another thing I would tell myself. Just because you find, I'm just going to give an example, smoking as a cardinal sin doesn't mean that person is evil through and through. And you can have relationships with people that do things that are different than yours. Again, we're not talking like hard drugs or anything, but right. Just making decisions, like you can still have them in your life. And that doesn't mean you're that person or you're going to follow in their path. And you can have a relationship with somebody and still be different. These are all things that I would tell myself, with the crown jewel being, remember, younger Mahlon, good people do bad things all the time, just as easy as bad people can do good things. So you cannot just see somebody's actions and think you know everything there is about them.
Yeah. Yeah. Another thing as we were talking that struck me was how trusting I was when I was younger. So, not just like not judging people, but also I think I would caution myself to guard myself a little more than I did, because I think there were some times where the super cool kid would go out of their way or let me into their group or something. And I would think that it was because magically, suddenly they wanted to hang out with me. And then it was really just to tease or harm. You know what I mean? And
I can give you 4 people's names from the people I grew up with that did the exact same thing to me.
Yes.
And you're just like, it's just gross. Anyways, sorry, go on.
Well, and not only that, but then also to, to know that I feel like I kind of went through this phase where most of high school, where everyone, my intentions were good, so I assumed everyone's intentions were good. So then, there was no ability to be scrutinizing about someone's motive, because I just trusted what they said at face value. And it amazes me when I look back at that, how many times I had to be hurt before I was able to say, okay, wait a second, maybe this person's intentions aren't for the good of me, but really just self-serving. So I really had to stop and think about that. So yeah, I think I would go back and say, Jamie, it's okay to take care of you, and it's okay to say no. It's okay to set a boundary. Like, those are all things that I didn't know that I had, because that's what it was. I was a people pleaser. So there.
Oh, that's a future topic brewing in the background already. So that's going to be awesome.
Which is why I stopped.
Yeah, I was going to say
stopped right there.
That's going to be so good to unpack. So hold on to all those really wonderful.
Boop.
And I mean, this might shock you, and everyone listening. I am not a people pleaser, and I would say,
Mahlon.
I know, shocking is
what?
Revelation time, everyone. Revelation time. But what I will say is the younger version of myself went probably one step further. And so it's not even about, I wasn't a people pleaser. I would say I was a people destroyer. So I played well with others as long as you played well with me, but there were some individuals that didn't. And, I never physically hurt anybody, but I was kind of born with a sharp tongue and a quick wit. And so there was quite a few people that I just destroyed and, humiliated and made fun of, that I would go back to my younger self and say, just because you have the ability to do these things, don't do it. Don't do it. It may feel good in the moment, but long term, don't do it.
What's interesting is that was one of the characteristics in you that I always admired when I was young. Not the idea of harming or anything like that, but at the same time, you were also super protective as a friend. And where I would just sit there and be like, yeah, you're right, I'm stupid, and just go along with whatever horrible thing somebody would say. When you and I were together, you were like, listen here. You could come up with some sort of a rebuttal to get them to back away. And that was a protective factor for me in our friendship. And so as much as that is something that you look at maybe in a less positive light, I always felt that it was a super protective factor for me when I couldn't be that person.
Yeah. And again, there's some positive traits to that. And I would definitely say being able to stick up for myself. I don't ever want to stop doing that. But to give you an example, and I'm not proud of this, but to give you an example of what I'm talking about, we had a kid who tormented me for years. In fact, I left public school for a short time and went to a private school. I left after fourth grade, and I went back into public school in seventh grade. So I missed fifth and sixth. And when I got back in seventh grade, this person just picked up right where they left off. And it started, the name calling, the pick, whatever you want to call it. It just started right back up. And I remember thinking to myself, I can either live with this or I can stop it. And so I chose to stop it the best way that I knew how, which was a terrible way. And so here's the example I'm going to give you. He had a series of health issues. At one point in time, they didn't know what was wrong. And then towards the end of, them not knowing, it was some sort of condition, disease. I believe they said at some point in time, he will succumb to it and it will end up eventually killing him. Now, I don't know how long that was at the time. That was just what was told. And so this person was getting a lot of sympathy from other people, but of course he never let up for me. He just kept on and on and on. And I'm not proud of this, but I wanted it to stop. So in class one day, he was just hounding me like he normally did. And I said, you know what? And I'll call him Steve that's not his real name, but I'll say Steve. Like, you know what, Steve? I can see now why your parents are happy that you'll be dead soon.
Oh.
And it sucked the air out of the room. And he started crying and ran out of the room, and everyone just stared at me. And I went back to doing my work because I just wanted to be left alone. That was the last time he has ever spoken to me. And I've seen him in my adult life when I go back home and visit my parents. And even today, the last time I saw him has been like 5, 6, 7 years ago. And still to this day, well, not long ago, would not utter a word to me, wouldn't even look at me. And I can't even imagine what that kind of hurt would have done to him with everything that he was going on. It's not okay. But I'm sure he was lashing out in his own way because he just was trying to struggle through the things that were happening in his life. But that's an example of when I say I'm a people destroyer, that's the kind of things that I would do. I would be mercifulness. Is that the word? We'll edit that. What's the word?
Merciless. I have no idea.
I was ruthless. I'll just say that. I was ruthless to people, and I didn't need to be.
Yeah, that's tough.
So my DeLorean, that's like number 1 on my list, is to go back and say, don't say this. Don't say this.
Don't be a jerk. Don't do it.
Yeah, don't say this to this individual because this is too much. And you lose who you are as a person when you start doing that kind of stuff to people.
You know, I think the thing too is that's one of those moments where, what a learning experience. I mean, here we are probably 30 years later talking about it, and you still remember that, and it still hits you. And we've shared that story. And even when you tell me again, I'm like, oh God, ouch. Like that's how we learn. You know, it is how we learn. Right. Unfortunately, we do it at the cost of others sometimes. So, I can't say that that's a great segue.
I was going to say, I'm seeing the list. I'm like, good luck with that segue.
Well, it is because, you know, the next thing we're going to talk about is relationships and love. But, yeah, this is probably, I'm kind of excited to talk about this one. So what would you advise your younger self about relationships and love, Mahlon?
So I would go and say it's okay to care for people deeper than surface level. I would say don't be afraid to open yourself up to deeper relationships. There was a long period of my life where superficial relationships were fine because that's what I needed. That's all the further I needed to go with individuals. And what I was really doing, I was keeping these relationships at bay. I was keeping people at bay. And so they'd only get to know me to a certain extent. And I think you've made this term before. People come in and out of your lives for, at different times for different reasons. I don't think that I was investing in relationships deep enough for them to stay along for more than just 6 months, a year before those relationships were over and I'm moving on to the next one. So I would go back and tell my younger self, invest in deeper relationships. Be okay to be open and vulnerable. And it's going to hurt. Some of that was avoidance for me. I didn't want to have to feel those emotions or those feelings. And so it was easier just to kind of keep things at the surface level. I'd go back and tell myself, feel them. Feel those losses, feel those wins. There's a whole bunch of learning that happens with that. And I think as a kid, as you're, turning into a young man and then becoming a young man, having some of those relationships at those times, at those age, teaches you how to foster better relationships when you're an adult. And I feel like I shortchanged myself quite a bit. So I would go back and say, feel that a little bit more, and don't be afraid to go deeper. And you're going to get hurt, and that's fine, but learn from it, embrace it. Don't avoid it.
Yeah. I think I would tell younger Jamie, don't do it. Like,
Don't get into relationships.
no,
You are now or none. We should just say, Sister Jamie, here you are.
No, I think I'm thinking a couple specifically, but a couple relationships specifically. Just don't return that phone call. But I get to say that because I can. But I guess when it comes to relationships, and we'll briefly tap in here again, I guess, but it's that people pleasing piece of me that was always conforming to what I felt others expected of me or needed of me. And so I think that is probably the one thing that I wish I could have understood sooner than when I actually learned that. I wish I could have said, hey, eventually this relationship won't fit anymore, because when you are comfortable enough to be yourself, it's not a match. Or you don't have to play this part in order to be loved. That you can be you, and that's okay. Yeah, I wish I could go back and tell myself, you can be you, and not to make myself into what it was that was expected of me by other people.
Well, and as I'm looking towards my children, those are lessons that as a parent you want your kids to learn too. Is you don't need to change for compromise is one thing, right? Learning to grow in a relationship with somebody is a different ball of wax. But if you have to change who you are as a person in order for that relationship to work, that's not a healthy relationship. Mm-hmm. And fortunately, unfortunately, however you want to look at it, I've had an opportunity to kind of share some of those with my kids. So I'm hoping, fingers crossed, that's what you hope for your kids is to, mm-hmm. I hope you get this. I hope you understand how important it is not for you to change who you are in order for someone else to like you, how important that is. So although I can't, I have my own struggles with relationships, as I mentioned, that's one thing that I really want to impress upon my kids.
I was almost like a chameleon. I used to tell a friend of mine when we would talk about stuff like this, how I could hang out with the church kids. I could hang out with the greasers. I could hang out with, I was with the skaters. I could hang out with all of them, because I just kind of adapted to whatever group I was with, and made myself fit. And so, and I don't know, part of that could have been me just trying to figure out where it is that I did fit and where I felt most comfortable. But I felt like it was a little more of a survival skill than that. You know what I mean? Like it was me trying to make sure that I could fit in all of those places. So,
well, I think I do think that's a really valid point. Now, I'm not trying to discount your younger self experience here, but I do think that is a part. Maybe not to the extreme that you're talking about, but I do think that's a part of growing up, is figuring out what are the group of people that you want to hang out with. Who do you relate the most with? Who do you have the most fun? And you do try to kind of sample out different relationships. I know in high school in particular, and then in college, there was relationships that I forged that in my younger self, there's no way. And even in my my adulthood now, I would look back and say, I'm not going to do that again. But I think in the moment, it's just figuring out where do you fit in and feel the most comfortable with your surroundings. So I think there's a little bit of that, but sounds like yours was a little bit more around, like you said, did you say fitting into different areas?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it was self-protective. I think it was, just trying to make sure that, because I always felt like I stuck out so bad, that I didn't look like anybody else. I didn't act like anybody else. So I think it was a bit of self-protection to do that, but I wish I could just tell myself to be you, that you deserve to be loved as you are, not as people think you are. So
I think as an adult, I need to learn that from time to time. Not
Still.
not that I change who I am for a lot of people, but sometimes I perceive them as, oh, they don't accept me, so I'm gonna close down everything because why? They've already made up their decision in their mind about me. I'll do the same about them and do it before I have to get hurt and get rejected. I'll just reject them.
Yeah. So as we're coming to a close, the last on our list anyway is you pick. We've talked a lot about like some serious or common topics, but if you, as we've reflected on this week, what is like, what did we miss? What would you tell yourself that we missed?
Oh, touched on quite a few. I think if I had to pick one more thing, it would be spend more time with my mom and my sister. Life's short, and the last 7 years has taught me anything with losing my mom than losing my sister is that relationships and people aren't always there. So I would go back and tell myself, enjoy the people that you do have in your life now. Enjoy those relationships. Do what you can to mend any kind of broken fences. Stop caring about the small, fights that you've had. Stop holding grudges. Just go and have a good time with the people that love you and that you love. And don't worry about the other stuff. Because every day we wake up and they're in our lives is a gift. And I would want to cherish each one of those. I would do anything to have just another hour with both of them just to kind of talk with them one more time. And so I would go back and tell myself to spend some more time with those individuals and maybe don't take them for granted as much as I did.
Yeah. That's good advice for older self too. I think the one thing that we didn't hit on that I really wish I could go back and tell myself much younger was really just to trust yourself, to not give that trust to others without giving it to yourself first. I was smart, I was capable, I was resourceful, and I was resilient, and I didn't trust any of that. And when I made decisions, I didn't believe they were good decisions. And so often I gave those decisions to other people because I didn't trust that I could make them. So I think that would be the thing that I would want to go back and learn sooner, is that I can trust myself and that I am capable of making good choices and I'm capable of doing good things. So
that's awesome. That's a good one.
Yeah.
So can we end on like a fun note?
Yes. Yes.
So, I want to suggest this to anybody else because you are my, oldest friend, meaning years of friendship, not in age. And you've actually kind of seen me grow from the little kid all the way through adolescence and into adulthood. And, I've kind of seen the same from you. So I was hoping, do you think we can maybe, if we have room in the DeLorean, we could go back and I could give younger Jamie some advice and you could give younger Mahlon some advice?
Absolutely. But you have to go first.
Well, again, this is in the spirit of just kind of what we observed and not meant to be hurtful in any way. So as long as we're both okay, then I think this would be kind of fun. So, what I would say to younger Jamie is I would say there seems to be a lot of time that you give thinking about what other people think of you. And I would just encourage you to say maybe something very similar to what you were just saying, but just a little bit different, which is be who you are and don't be afraid to make other people upset or uncomfortable with your decisions if that doesn't go along with them. And, maybe if they have a bad idea, I think what the situation I'm thinking of, maybe don't just go along with it. Maybe stand up to them a little bit and say, no, I don't want to do that, or I think that's wrong, or I'm just going to go home. that would be my advice to younger Jamie is, you don't have to be part of the crowd to be liked. And I take a little bit of that myself, but that would be one of the things that I would tell younger Jamie.
Oh, older Jamie's going to try and listen to that too. So thank you, friend.
Younger Jamie just slapped me, everyone. If you didn't hear that, younger Jamie's not having it. No, just kidding.
Well, there was some slapping here and there. I know. Oh my goodness. Well, that's what happens when you're friends from the time you're 8 years old. What do you do?
Right.
Maybe 9.
Whatever third grade is, whatever age that is.
I still cannot believe and still have not seen the transcripts for the record.
I will plan on having a copy when you get here in September.
Fantastic. Okay. If there is something that I could tell younger Mahlon, there's a couple things. First of all,
Jamie's been waiting. I have a list.
Literally, I have open consent to give advice, and I'm taking it. No, dear younger Mahlon, 25,000 miles is not that many, and
what?
Oh my gosh. I remember you had a car that went over 25,000 miles and you were stressing out about it. Do you remember that?
Now I do. I bought a car that had more than 25,000 miles on it just recently.
Like, oh my gosh, it's so old. I mean, we've been together for so long. I would also tell you, my dear friend Mahlon, that 25 years old is really not that old.
Hey, quarter of a century was a big one for me, okay? 25 years. However, I would go back there in a heartbeat.
It was. I would also tell you that I am really proud of the person that you became and are becoming, because although when you were younger, you acted like you had this shield of armor around you and nothing could penetrate it. The truth of the matter is that you have more drive to be a good human being than many people that I know. And so I am a better person for being your friend because of that. So that is the advice I would give younger Mahlon.
Oh, thank you. I would go back in a time machine and say to the older version that just went and talked to younger Jamie, I'd push him out of the way and say, she's going to take the high road. Don't actually say anything.
No. Sorry, 25,000 miles. I mean, you were freaking out over 25,000 miles.
Perspective adds a lot. I'll just say that. Perspective adds a lot.
I have a feeling it was like a precursor to your 25th birthday when you were going to be freaking out too. Like, I've never seen a midlife crisis happen at 25 until you hit 25. It was amazing.
It was a big deal to be a quarter of a century. That was, that's getting up there. As everybody that's listening collectively rolls their eyes. Yes, I hear you now and I hear myself, so we don't have that problem.
If only you'd have known that at 24, it would have been great. So,
true story.
Well, this has been fun and a good end to my reflective week, so that now I can just push forward and get the work done and move and be happy that I am in a new space and I'm not doing the chaotic thing anymore. So,
it was kind of nice to kind of reflect and laugh a little bit and also see how ridiculous I was. Thank you for that. 25 years, 25,000 miles. Anyways, but it's good to kind of laugh and have some just humor. So thank you.
Yes, it was good. So that concludes this exciting episode. Just kidding. I did not look at the thesaurus this week, so we're just going to go with it. But it's been great spending this time with you, and I can't wait to do it again next time. See you later.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye. This podcast was recorded and edited by Jamie Mahlon. Music by Famous Cats. If you have a topic you'd like us to discuss, please email us at roundtablemindset@gmail.com. Text or call us at 402-819-8999 or join the conversation on Facebook at Roundtable Mindset Podcast.
And never miss a new episode by making sure you like, subscribe, and share wherever you listen to podcasts. Thanks for being our guest today. See you next time at the Roundtable. And remember, your opinions and perspectives matter and are appreciated, but might not always be shared by others, and that's okay.